Remember those old Rankin and Bass films that would air on television during the holiday seasons? Well, it turns out there's a lost film that was created by the two animators and is believed to predate the original Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer film. The footage was said to have been discovered in an old abandoned storage unit in Hollywood, which also contained rare stock footage and movie stills from the other well-known Rankin and Bass films. The Super 8 canister was labeled Reindeer, so it was automatically believed to be the original footage taken of Rudolph's famed movie. Knowing that this could be a major artifact in the world of Rankin and Bass, the person who first discovered it kept it for themselves. Although, along with an old Super 8 projector, the individual, who I keep anonymous for reasons I will explain later, viewed the footage while he or she took notes on every aspect. The following account is a combination of all the notes details made about the film. The film begins with the opening title screen scene, the original Rudolph footage. The blizzard gusts etched the name of those who were most noted for creating film, including Rankin and Bass. But one detail that I noticed was especially strange for a holiday film is there is no audio whatsoever. Not even the sound of the gales could be heard, let alone the holiday music, which would set the mood. While the wind was near the moment of unveiling the title of the film, I came to the conclusion that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was about to appear. But as the wind blew away the snow, the title Randulph the Reigndeer appeared. Instead of the trademark look of the title that fans have all come to know, the title appeared in dull, block-shaped letters. I knew at this point I was viewing an entirely different film, but I pressed on, thinking that it was some sort of prototype version of the original Rudolph film, and that it was never finished. The snowy winds blew away, revealed an older reindeer, whom I assumed was Randolph. But the most unnerving detail about him is that his fur was completely black instead of the brownish hue given to him in the original film. We see him casually walking through the wintry forest, showing no emotion on his face. He continued to walk until he runs into two other reindeer. One of them looks similar to Fireball. One strange detail, besides the reindeer being completely black, is that there is no audio of the characters talking in one another. Only sound of grainy footage can be heard, increasing the terrifying nature of the film. The two reindeer seem to be mocking Randolph, one of the few similar traits in the original film. You can clearly see the two characters laughing at him, showing more hatred with every giggle. A zoom in of Randolph's face showed the pure anger he had towards the reindeer, his pupils red and bloodshot. The screen then changed to real-life footage of two reindeer brawling with each other, clashing their antlers together. At this point I knew that this film was made by someone other than Rankin and Bass. This detail, along with others, didn't add up to being a joyful holiday film, possibly a spin-off of the original Rudolph movie. The footage of the two reindeer fighting lasted for about a minute. The screen then flips back to the puppet sequence. The mangled body of Fireball-like reindeer is shown full-blown, causing me to gasp in both terror and shock. Laid there on the blood-stained snow, his entrails laying beside him. The image stayed this way for about a minute, until it changed to the next scene. It was then that I came to the shocked conclusion that Randolph had viciously mauled that one reindeer, while the second one fled away in terror. The next scene shows Santa's castle, which was done in black and gray colors instead of the well-known pinkish shades. The screen then fades out to Santa and Mrs. Claus in the dining room area. Both are wearing black-colored versions of their original outfits. Santa's being the trousers and suspenders, and Mrs. Claus with her dress and apron. At this point, audio returned to the footage, and we heard the two arguing about Christmas-related problems. Mrs. Claus spoke with an irritable tone, as if she were angry with Santa about something. Santa's response came out in an oppressed manner, dragging out some words in a gloomy fashion. The audio once again lost, and the quality of the footage goes from mediocre to absolute crap. The scene stays on Santa and Mrs. Claus, but the two puppets are not animated in the footage. It looks as if the animators are just holding the puppets, moving them around in a childish manner. In some frames, the fingers or hands of the animators can be seen for a split second. The screen goes to Randolph strolling through the forest, but in the opposite direction, as opposed to the beginning of the film. Blood can be seen trickling off from his antlers as he leaves bloody hoof tracks in his gait. The scene seems to repeat itself as if the same footage is used over and over again until the scene changed. But one thing I have noticed is that there's no sign of any of the forest creatures from the original film. Rabbits, seals, raccoons, and even birds cannot be seen. It wasn't until a few seconds into the sequence when I noticed what is lying in the snow as Randolph continued walking. As he walked by, the carcasses of birds, rabbits, and raccoons lie in the snow beside him. The most disturbing detail about this is that the bodies appear to have been eaten by something other than an animal. Randolph continued to walk, not stopping even once to notice the bodies beside him. But before the scene changed, I noticed something lying next to the last body on the screen. I rewound the footage and nearly vomited. Laying next to the carcass of rabbit was a knife and a fork, both covered in crimson red blood. The scene fades out to the elf's workshop, filled with busy elves building toys. A faint bell can be heard, and the elves begin to exit the room. We see Hermie about to stand up, but is immediately assaulted by the head elf. He begins screaming at Hermie, but the audio is gone, so all you can make out of the two characters mouthing words. One strange aspect about the head elf is that he looks more primitive, with shaggy beard and tattered clothes. Hermie has sported worn-out clothes as well, and both characters seem to have large scars on the cheeks and hands. At first, I was confused about this detail, thinking there were errors on the sculpture of their faces. Then I came to a conclusion that sent shivers down my spine. Santa had forced elves to work non-stop on toys, and any disobedient elves were whipped. The head elf finished his conversation with Hermie and walked out of the workshop. Hermie is now alone, a single light shining above his head. For a few seconds, he simply stared at the toy train he had been working on before. He then reaches over and grabs a mallet, and proceeds to strike the train repeatedly. The screen stays on Hermie as he emotionally smashes the train. The camera then zooms on the train, which has now been reduced to a pile of wooden splinters. Then the scene fades out. We now see Randolph sitting in his cave next to a cardboard box. He simply stares at the opposite wall for a good 5 minutes, blinking. There is no sign of his parents. I only could expect something bad to happen. Seeing the nature of the film, I then froze in front of the screen when Randolph picked up a revolver from out of the box, slowly puts the gun under his chin and pulls back the hammer. The scene changes before he can pull the trigger. A title card appeared on the screen stating, 4 months later. We see a large group of elves and reindeer. All elves are wearing black elf uniforms, and we see a coffin in front of the crowd containing Randolph. The most eerie aspect about him is that he shows no sign of decomposition. It's as if he died the day before. The crowd then lines up and they begin to say their farewells to Randolph. After a few elves pass by, a female reindeer comes up to the coffin and places a blood-soaked antler next to his casket. I assumed she was Farabelle's mother, who still grieves over the death of her son. Santa and Mrs. Claus come next, and then the head elf, leaving Hermie for last. He steps up to the coffin and begins to say farewell. Near the end of his statement, audio returns to the film. He then bends over the casket and whispers, "There's a storm coming," into Randolph's ear before walking away. 5 seconds of the scene zoom in of Randolph's face, which still has a massive hole in his head where the bullet exited. Then the film ends. Authorities later found the person in his or her home who apparently had gone mentally ill upon viewing the movie. In addition, the phrase, "There's a storm coming," was found written in blood on several walls in the house, and the body of a raccoon was discovered in the individual's bedroom. The actual film itself mysteriously disappeared after its viewing. To this day, authorities and psychologists are still unsure what caused the person's symptoms, or, more importantly, why. Rumors start to spread that the lost Rankin and Bass film caused viewers to go insane upon watching it in its entirety. I have this single warning for all of those who are reading this. If you happen to find a copy of the film, or the actual reel itself, do not, by any circumstances, watch it, in the hopes to save anyone else from viewing it. As for now, you can only hope the film is never discovered again. If it is found, however, I can only hope that the individual has read this warning beforehand, and will destroy the film out of fear and safety. If you choose not to heed my warning and you watch the film, I'm afraid to say it's already too late for you.